After more than a century of Prussian model state-run indoctrination that can only laughingly be referred to as education, it should be no surprise to anyone that critical, independent thinking is in short supply. After all, big education and its centralized, free, and compulsory schooling was designed to produce NPC drones who would be obsequiously compliant to authority and get good boy jobs to produce tax revenue for the very same government they are trained not to question. Brings to mind that old quote, "If something is free, you are the product." H.L. Mencken wrote in 1924 that the goal of public education is not to fill the young of the species with knowledge and awaken their intelligence, but to reduce as many individuals as possible to the same safe level, to breed and train a standardized citizenry, and to put down dissent and originality. I'm reminded of this quote nearly every single day, as it has become obvious now, perhaps more than ever, that the life of delusion that many people lead was first shaped by the soul-sucking monotony of rote memorization that qualifies as education. Add to this the insidious cancer of Frankfurt school subversion and the long march of communist infiltrators through every hallway of our nation's schools, and it is no wonder that our education system is an abject failure at every single level. The product of such an irredeemably broken system is the modern midwit, many of whom work in academia and produce banal, inconsequential bullshit that somehow passes for scholarly research. Recently, two such midwits affiliated with King's College of London published an analysis of the quote-unquote free extremist online community 4chan entitled "The Challenges of Studying 4chan and the Alt-Right. Come on in, the water's fine." I'm not even going to lend credence to an endeavor that deserves none by doing a line-by-line analysis of this 26-page research document, but it is worth taking a closer look at what so-called studies like this reveal about those who purport to seek understanding of sites like 4chan and what the possible implications are for us all. First of all, it is necessary to mention that authors of studies like this don't seem to seek understanding at all. Despite their purported interest in objectively analyzing how online free speech platforms serve as radicalization vectors of the so-called alt-right, the authors already have their minds made up about the ideas expressed on the site and are only seeking to confirm their preconceived beliefs. By referring to such communities as free extremist instead of what they really are, platforms of free speech, they are already toying with language straight out of the Saul Alinsky playbook and attempting to force the reader into accepting a false equivalency where freedom of speech is necessarily associated with extremists. From the abstract, they have already revealed their intentions, consciously or not, which is to confirm the foregone conclusion that freedom of speech is necessarily the domain of extremist right-wingers and white supremacists, and they list several instances where people who have gone on to commit acts of violence have been users of the site. So already we are taken down their chosen path using massive leaps in logic that sites like 4chan are dangerous places where freedom of speech is hate speech that causes real harm to real people and thus extremist by nature and thus necessarily associated with violent acts committed by violent actors, all of whom, by the way, have been specifically referred to in the media as white. We already know that white men are the most absolutist when it comes to free speech, and despite the fact that 4chan users are found in just about every country in the world, we are led to believe that the site is exclusively a place for white supremacist would-be terrorists, discussing their evil racist ideas and attempting to radicalize normies into joining the cause. On several occasions, they mention the harm that can be done by so-called free extremist expression, and again, they want us to take it as a given that words do harm. Even those researching the communities are at potential risk, especially if they are women, ethnic minorities, and certain other identity groups. The authors admit that they are white males, and thus in a less vulnerable position as researchers. Ideas are thought crimes. At no point do they seem aware of the fact that the reason sites like 4chan are so popular is because contemporary discourse about topics like race has become either strictly forbidden or so sanitized that only one side of the argument is presented. How many times have we been told that what they want is an open dialogue about race, when all they really want is an opportunity for another multicultural pile-on about how racist white people are? We see people and ideas censored all over the internet. Ban waves happen constantly on social media, YouTube deplatforming and demonetizing, Reddit censoring language that doesn't fit the narrative. At no point do they get even the remotest sense that the freedom people have on sites like 4chan to challenge the official narrative is an attempt to seek out objective truth. Because to them, being the good subservient subjectivists they are, there is no objective truth. It's feels before reals, it's dogma before data, and to say otherwise is to commit heresy against the secular saints of the cult Marx orthodoxy. On page 15, the authors mention quite a revealing assertion that, quote, identifying attempts to influence discourse on a poll thread is possible and a potentially useful research area, unquote. This is exactly what they want to do, like they've done to nearly every other online space, to be able to control the narrative, to flood the discussion with bots and sock puppet accounts, all parroting the same lines in order to tell you exactly what to think. They are so convinced of their correct opinions, and they won't and they can't let themselves see anything to the contrary. At several points, they make the claim that 4chan users believe they possess a superior understanding of the world, accusing others of that which they themselves are so smugly assured. They, like so many others who have attempted to make a study of free speech platforms, can't seem to grasp the fact that censoring language and making topics taboo and off the table for discussion gets us nowhere as a culture, as a species. In fact, it forces us back in time. And that is the real danger revealed to us by examinations of such prosaic, polysyllabic, mid-wit academic endeavors. It's not the words or the thoughts or the speech that is dangerous. The real danger is those who would snuff out truth because of the misguided, menacing notion that they themselves are in possession of ultimate reality. And what they don't realize is that it's not just our side, whatever that is, that loses here. We all lose. We all miss out on what is in favor of what should be or what ought to be. Johann Gottlieb Fichte, one of the early advocates of the Prussian education model, said, quote, education should aim at destroying free will, so that after pupils are thus schooled, they will be incapable throughout the rest of their lives of thinking or acting otherwise than as their schoolmasters would have wished. How do you think that ends for us?